Hey guys, how's it going? Thank you so much for joining today's session and welcome back. So today's going to be our session 2. We're going to talk about the configuration of our inbound and outbound configurations on the P-Series system. Well, in the previous session, we were talking about the basic configuration of our PBX and also some configurations about your extension settings, something very basic. So it actually means for now, you can grab your extensions for making calls directly, for internal calls. So today we're just going to talk about how do we handle some external calls, right? So let's just jump into our system and give it a check. All right. Now, for today's session, the first thing I would like to get started with our trunk configuration. All right, talk about the external calls. Absolutely, you'll need to make sure you have available channels, you have available trunks to communicate with the outside. So here we go. We're gonna talk about the trunk configuration first. Now, as you guys can see for now on this live demo, this P550, currently I got a bunch of options available here. I have a SIP trunk, which is created before, all right? And I get some other channels. I have GSM SIM card. I'm sorry, I have a GSM module inserted on my system, which means I can use my SIM card as another option for the trunk for my channel. And I have a O2 module inserted on this P550 as well, so I got 2 available interfaces for FXO trunk connection. Well, currently you guys can see I got one FXO channel connected with my P-Series system successfully. It works well, all right, because we can check the working status of our channel over here. So this FXO trunk, this analog trunk, it works well, all right. And for other trunk like my GSM module, the SIM card, obviously they don't work for now because I don't have any SIM card inserted in the system. All right. So what I want to tell you guys is about the physical channels, like your analog channel or your ISDN channels. Anyway, it's not a big deal, honestly, especially the configuration, because those type of channels are totally physical lines. There's nothing you need to do for configuration. You simply just purchase the service, and the carrier, the service provider, they will give you everything. It's all set. Everything's pre-configured. So you get the cable, make sure you have the very particular module inserted on your system, and then you just plug and play. It's all physical connections, nothing special, so everything's ready to go. All right. But something's a little bit special on our PBX, which is going to be the SIP trunk. This is something so special. You cannot just purchase the SIP channel. You get the Ethernet cable there, you plug it in your system, then you try to use it directly. No, you can't. You're going to activate the SIP channel by yourself. So let's give it a check on our SIP trunk configuration. All right. We will simply just click on Add button, and here we go. This is going to be the interface for our SIP channel configuration. Now, the first thing is pretty clear. We're just going to name this SIP channel. So you can probably call whatever you want. Let's say SIP123. All right, just an example. Here we got a trunk status. We're going to use the SIP trunk. Obviously, we're going to keep it this way, keep it enabled. And then detailed configuration. Well, this is something very important. Let's have a check here. Now, first thing is going to be the trunk type. We have 3 options. We get a registered trunk, pure trunk, and an account trunk. So I'm going to talk about them one by one. Let's have a check on the registered trunk first. This is actually the most popular way for people to activate their SIP trunk on the service provider side. Pretty sure you guys maybe still remember in our previous session, I was talking about the interfaces, the network interfaces on our PBX. We got a LAN port and we got a WAN port, right? So I was talking about mostly we will have SIP trunk with our internet service by one channel, through the same channel. That's the most popular way, right? So for that kind of circumstance, absolutely we're going to use the registered trunk because 9 times out of 10 service provider, they will give you, no matter what kind of service providers you have there, anyway, they will just provide you a very particular, server address plus the username and password for your authentication. That's it. So we're going to use register trunk. It's quite clear. We're going to register our PBX on the service provider side to activate the particular service. That's it. So over here, we're going to drop the host name and IP address with the domain. These parameters are provided by the service provider with no doubt. So this is the register trunk, which is the most popular way, the most common way. And another option we have here is the peer trunk. All right, give it a check here. Things are going to be a little bit different. If we select peer trunk, well, we don't have username and password because it doesn't need it. All right, it doesn't need a username and password. If you select peer trunk, we only, I guess the only thing we need here is just the server address. The hosted name, the IP address, the domain provided by the service provider. This is not that popular, but it depends. All right, it depends on the service provider. Just like I mentioned in the previous session, I said sometimes some service providers, they might probably provide a SIP trunk in a different way. I mean, they will probably give you two different cables, one for the internet service, another one for your SIP trunk. So for that kind of circumstance, you will actually need to enable dual mode on the network interface, right? That's what you're going to do physically. And on your PBX, because you got a WAN port, you just make WAN port reserved for the SIP trunk connection. So currently, right now, this is just the time for us to figure that trunk configuration directly. So if the service provider, they provide you a SIP trunk with a very specific channel, all right, they will give you a very particular public IP address, which is configured on your WAN port mostly. So on your PBX, when you try to activate this SIP trunk, the other thing you're going to do here is kind of like a peer-to-peer, right? We're going to make a peer trunk between our PBX and the service provider directly, so I don't need a username or password. It's not a registration. What I need here is just the, a valid IP address for that identification. So over here, service provider, they will give you a very particular host name, IP address, plus the domain name. But anyway, once again, it depends on the service provider. So if the service provider, they don't give you username and password, you simply just choose the peer trunk. All right. And by the way, about the peer trunk, I guess there's another way we can use the peer trunk, which is not for the SIP trunk connection with the service provider, which is kind of like an interconnection. So sometimes if you have two systems, you have two PBXs, you want to figure out the interconnection between them so you will be able to, make a call between each other for free. So if you need a solution like that, you can also use peer trunk. Deploy two systems in the same local area network, and then just exchange IP addresses for both of them. That's it. So that's also a peer trunk application. All right, and the third one, account trunk. Once again, the account trunk, this is quite popular for interconnection, all right, because mostly if you want to get a SIP trunk, if you want to activate your SIP trunk service from the service provider side, you're going to use register trunk or peer trunk. But the account trunk, mostly this is used for helping us to create the interconnection between two systems. Now, the previous solution I was talking about is called peer trunk. So you will have to, exchange IP addresses for both of your systems. Now, if you select account trunk, give it a check here, guys. Things are going to be completely different. There's nothing you need to do for now because your system, this PBX, will help you to generate the username, password, authentication name. All right, and plus you have a specific IP address of this PBX. So it's kind of like this PBX is going to work as the service provider, and the other PBX or the other gateway, anyway, whatever you want to do there, whatever you need there, they're going to work as kind of like a client. So when we try to create the SIP trunk, well, that SIP trunk will be registered, by the other PBX, by the other device. So this is just another way for helping us to figure out the interconnection on our PBX. Okay? All right, anyway, whatever you've created here, then don't forget to click on Save and Apply. All right. Make sure your modifications are going to take effect. Okay, so this is about the trunk configuration. All right, I think we're good. We can keep going. Now, the next step we're going to do here is just to make use of our channels for incoming and outgoing calls. So we simply click on Call Control here. Now, we got inbound route and outbound route. Inbound route, obviously, this is for helping you to handle incoming calls. Outbound route is just for helping you to handle the outgoing call. All right, so let's have a check one by one. Now, I guess before we start talking about the inbound and outbound configurations, I think we can talk about the business hours and holidays first. All right. Think about it. Here's an example. If you guys make a call to Yeastar office, all right, let's say you guys make a call to Yeastar office on Saturday. I'm pretty sure no one's going to pick it up. You will go access our voicemail directly. But if you make a call, to Yeastar office maybe Thursday, Wednesday, anyway, definitely you're going to go to a proper destination. It could be a tech support or service center, sales department, anyway. Well, the reason why we can do that is because we got time conditions. We got a business hours here. It basically means we have a bunch of time conditions. So our system will be able to figure out how do we handle those incoming calls to a proper destination during, different time period. All right, so let's give it a check here. So for different durations, we're going to handle different calls to different destinations, right? So we click on add here, add a new time condition. We call this as business hours, so let's have a check. You can click on this add button to add a new business hour. Oh, that's quite clear, business hours, right? So take Yeastar as an example. We start working in morning, I guess it's around 9 o'clock. 9 o'clock in the morning, and then office is off by 6 p.m. This is out of business hour, all right. And I guess that's a very general rule. It works for every single day in Yeastar office. I think I can just keep it this way. And also we need a break hours. We got lunch break. So I can click on add over here. The lunch break is actually contained in the business hours, all right, because I never make any, complex configurations there. I just set a general rule there. So I will need a break hours. So it's supposed to be, I guess, our break hour is going to be 12 o'clock to 1 p.m. All right, that's our lunch break. Okay, so I will keep it this way. And days of week, Monday to Friday. So let's select them one by one. All right, and then click on save. So this is going to be a very simple general business hour, time condition rule, right? Then we click on apply. All right. And by the way, here we also have holidays. So if you have some special holidays, you can also put it over here. All right. Whatever you need here, you can just simply give it a name here and select your holiday type. It could be a holiday by date, by month, by week. So some holiday by date, I guess, like a New Year or something. That's a very accurate date. That's a holiday with a very accurate date. So we can select date. And some other holidays, I guess, like Thanksgiving or something, we're not so sure which date. So we can select month or week. Anyway, this is just flexible for you. All right, so this is about the holiday configuration. Anyway, let's just make it simpler, all right? So I'm going to skip this part. Just keep a business hour here, all right? Now, I guess we can keep going. So we're going to go for inbound route first. Let's talk about how do we handle incoming calls. So simply click on add. And just give it a name here. All right. So this inbound route, you can name it. Let's see. This is going to be incoming 1, 2, 3. Name it whatever you prefer. All right. This is just an example. And then we have DID pattern. We have DID matching mode. Anyway, bunch of options here. This is flexible, guys. This is totally flexible and optional for you. All right. I guess we can skip this part, and I'm going to talk about this a little bit later. Let's keep going. Then we also have caller ID pattern, and once again, I would like to skip this for now, and I will talk about this a little bit later. So we're going to create the inbound route. So we name it. The next step we're going to do here is just to make sure we have available channels as being selected in this, have been selected in this inbound route, right? So you can just make your selection. You have so many options here. You can select them one by one, or you can select all of them, or you can just pick something you wanna use, whatever. Let's see. I'm gonna select these two channels. So 2 channels, obviously they have 2 different caller ID, right? So you don't have to worry about this. Because you have 2 different caller IDs, you can simply just give your customers different caller IDs. They will make a call through different channels. That's it. But anyway, I have 2 available channels for now. They have been selected. So any call go through those 2 channels will be handled according to my configuration. All right. The next step, default destination, it's hang up. So if you never change anything there, any call go through these 2 channels, these 2 chunks, will be handed up. All right. It will be hang up. So we can just give it a check here. We can just make some customization here. You can select some destination here, but don't forget we're going to enable time condition if we want to make our system smarter. So we're going to enable time condition here. All right, let's have a check. We have time-based routing mode. All right, when you put your mouse on it, you got a notification here. I mean, tips, kind of like a tips. So let's have a check one by one. Select how the route incoming calls based on date and time. The options are based on global business hours. Routing incoming calls based on the business hours and holidays defined in the call control business hours and holidays. You'll be able to configure separate routing destinations for business hours, outside business hours, and holidays. So anyway, it basically means you can create just time conditions, which I was talking about. You can create a bunch of time conditions over there, and you can create multiple, inbound route by using different time conditions. That's one way for you to do it, but it will be a little bit tricky because you need to be very careful with your time conditions. Make sure all of your configurations are totally logical. All right, maybe sometimes if you made a mistake, well, you can't handle a call to a proper destination. All right. But anyway, I just made one time condition, which is very simple. So I guess I can just keep the default one, which I created before. That's totally okay. But here's a tip for you guys: is just be a little bit careful on it. If you have multiple time conditions, you want to create multiple inbound route. All right. And another option here we have is let's just take a look. We have some other options. We also have based on custom business hours, based on custom time periods. So if you select based on custom business hours, all right, there you go. Here you can start your customization for business hours. So if you want to create a particular inbound route with a very special, a very specific business hour rule, time condition rule, there you go. So you can just create a new rule by yourself over here. Then our system will not going to follow the default global business hour rule. We're going to follow the one you created here. All right. So this is about the based on custom business hours. And then here you can set the destination. For example, business hours destination, out business hours destination, holidays destination. Anyway, it's quite clear, right? So this is one option for you. Another option we got here is based on custom time periods. Give it a check here. All right, if you select this one, then you click on Add Custom Time Periods. All right, there you go. So this is not going to be a business hour. This is going to be a time periods. All right, so you can simply just make your customization totally by yourself. I guess sometimes maybe we can use this for some circumstance, like some sort of service center solution. They might probably take a shift work system. If they're using shift work system, so probably they're going to use this, all right? Because different group of people, they're working different durations. Then we can create a different time periods, for sure. All right. And again, we can set a holiday destination, default destination over here. So this is about the based on custom time periods. Let's make it simpler, all right? This is just an example, so I guess we can use the global business hours. All right. Then we have business hours destination. Make your selection here. You can probably select IVR, the most popular way for people to handle incoming calls during business hours. So for example, if you guys make a call to Yeastar office during our business hour, first thing you get there is, thank you for calling Yeastar. For English service, please press 1. For Chinese service, please press 2. Anyway, something like that. But anyway, I will talk about more details of the IVR configuration in the next session. All right, so for today, I guess we are going to skip this part, okay? So I will just select something I had before. All right, so this is about the IVR as the business hours destination. And another one, outside business hours destination. Well, if this is out of your business hour, how would you like to handle that call? Well, I guess you can just hand it up, or you can use your voicemail. Whatever you prefer. This is totally available for you. All right. And also, we got a holidays destination. I guess holiday destination, we can... I think we can also ask them to leave a message, all right? So probably I'm going to select Tina or Tillian. Anyway. All right. So this is about the default destination configuration. All right, it's quite clear, guys. Okay, now let's give it a check on our DID pattern configuration here. All right. So here, DID, DID matching mode, lots of things we put it over here. Generally speaking, this is just the DID pattern. The way how you configure your DID numbers, patterns, anyway, it's over here. So let's have a check. Here we have three options. You can select DID pattern. You can select match DID pattern to extensions. You can also select match DID range to extension range. So if you use DID pattern, wow, that's quite simple. I'm not going to match it to any specific destination. What I'm going to do here is I will just drop a DID pattern here. So if I have some DID numbers, it could be one DID number or multiple DID numbers, I can simply just add a rule here to tell the system what is my DID number or what does it look like. Maybe it's not an exact number, it's a bunch of numbers, so I can use the pattern to tell the system what does it look like, all right? So have a check here. When you put your mouse on DID matching mode, here's the tips, here's actually just the tips for you to use our letters, and numbers to tell the system how does it look like. All right. For example, if you use a letter X, it matches the numbers from 0 to 9. So if I drop a number, I drop a letter X. It basically X means it could be anything. It could be number 0, number 5, number 6, number 9. Any digit will be okay. Any number will be okay. And if I use letter Z matches the numbers from 1 to 9. Letter N matches the numbers, from 2 to 9. Anyway, it's just a number range. So whatever you prefer here, you can just put it over here. Let's say I got a specific DID number, 555000123. That's a specific DID number. So you put it here, basically means any call go for this inbound route if the customer called this specific DID number. There you go. If he calls some other numbers, DID number only works on your SIP trunk, your ISDN channels, which means these two types of channels have multiple communication channels, which means it could be available for you to get multiple DID numbers. So if you put a specific DID number here, then only when customers call this DID number, there you go, they're going to go reach this inbound route. Otherwise, they're not going to go through this inbound route to the destination you set it here. All right. Or maybe you can use, pattern to tell your system. Like the last number, I'm not so sure. It could be 3, 5, 4, 6, anything. So I can put an X here. All right. This is the way how we use the pattern to tell the system. It's kind of like I just give you a general image. I just tell you how does it look like, my DID number. It could be, because I have multiple DID numbers, it's not a continuous numbers, it's just some random numbers. But I can figure this out by this rule. All right, so this is the DID pattern. Oops, all right, let's keep going. And another one we have here is match DID pattern to extensions. Well, there you go. If you select this one, here you just put your DID pattern. All right, you just put your specific DID pattern. That's it. All right, and then we're just gonna use this DID pattern to extensions directly. And another thing we have here is match DID range to extension range. So sometimes you want to match your DID numbers. You have a continuous DID numbers like 555000121 to 555000125. You want to match those numbers to your extension numbers like 1001 to 1005. There you go. You can just put your DID range over here. So it basically means this time you guys can see we have three options. Make your DID configurations much easier, much simpler. Everything's be quite clear. All right, whatever you want, just select the one you need. All right, so this is about the DID pattern. And another thing we have here is the caller ID pattern. While caller ID pattern, you can simply add a rule here. It's optional for you, I guess. So if you add a rule here, it basically means you're going to tell your system, this very particular caller ID, I would like to match it with the destination I'm going to set here. So for example, the pattern, let's see a very specific number. if I drop a number here, so which basically means if this caller's caller ID is that number, well, please send this call through these two channels to the specific destination. I mean, other numbers, if their caller ID is not this, well, they're not going to go through this, these two channels to the destination I set here. Make it be very specific. So the caller ID pattern, I guess sometimes we can use it for like a prank calls. If you get lots of prank calls, you can put their caller ID over here. You set the destination, hang up. Or if you have a VIP customer, you want to handle his call directly instead of IVR or something. So you can put his caller ID over here, and you set the destination to the manager or supervisor anyway directly. So we're not gonna, drop this customer call to IVR. We're just gonna take that call to a destination directly. All right, so this is about the inbound route. I'm not gonna create anything there, I guess. And then the last one is fax detection. Well, honestly, guys, if you have FXO trunk, it's not a big deal. You can use your fax directly because fax can be supported by FXO channel with no doubt. And the only thing you need there is just make sure you have a fax machine connected with your system. There you go. And fax detection over here is if sometimes you don't have, let's see, you don't have a FXO channel, you have a SIP channel. All right, then you will need to enable fax detection. All right, and then, by the way, you will also need to get back to the trunk configuration there, enable T.38 protocol. All right, let me show you guys. So we're going to go for the trunk configuration. All right, find the SIP trunk. Let's see this SIP trunk, which I was creating before. Then over here, we're going to go for advanced. Here we got a T.38. Enable this. All right, this is quite important. All right, this is actually for fax detection. Okay, and then we're going to get back to the inbound route so we can keep going. Okay, then here we go. About the fax destination, you have two options. Also we got a hand up. So honestly, 3 options. But I guess hand up is not an option. All right, let's forget about that. So you can select extension, which will be fax machine if you have. So you can select the extension directly, or you can use fax to email. That's another option. So you will be able to get a fax by PDF through your email. After that, just click on save. So there we go. There you go. This is the way how we create an inbound route. Okay. All right, let's keep going. Next one, outbound route. Same as URL, we're going to click on add, create a new outbound route. All right. First step, name your outbound route. So let's see outgoing 1, 2, 3. All right. And then here we have outbound caller ID. We have row. These are options for you totally. All right. If you set an outbound caller ID over here, then basically means we're just going to show our customers, our contacts, this specific outbound caller ID. But if you never set anything there, for outbound routes, you can select multiple channels. So you're going to use that specific channel, that specific trunk caller ID to display it to customers. And you can also select user roles. Well, just like I said, in the previous session, I was talking about the user role. This is kind of like user permission. Every single extension can work as different identity. Different user permission, right? So if I select the user role administrator, it basically means this outbound route only works for people whose work as the administrator. Other users, if your user role is employee or operator, I'm sorry, you cannot use this outbound route. So this is just another way for helping us to make our solution be more enhanced. All right. Okay. And then we got a DEL pattern. I'm going to talk about the DEL pattern a little bit later, so let's keep going. The next step, just select the channel. Select your chunks. All right, so you can select a bunch of chunks, or you can select all of them, whatever you prefer. Okay. And then next one, outbound route password. So you select a bunch of outbound routes. You select a bunch of chunks for this outbound route. So basically means people, when they try to make use of those chunks for outgoing calls, you can set a password here. It's just good for security. All right, you can set a password over here. Good for security. Then every single time when they try to make an outgoing call, the system gonna play the prompt. Please enter the password followed by the pound key. Something like that. Okay. Next one, round robin with memory hunt. Give it a check here. Round robin with memory. If enabled, the system will remember which chunk was used the last time and then use the next available chunk to call out. So here's the deal. Think about it, guys. For outbound route, it's not like inbound route. Inbound route, we got different chunks, got a different caller IDs. So customers, they can call different caller IDs to reach your incoming call destination. But for outbound route, it's not like that. If we set a rule like this, then basically means our system would just follow this priority. Have a check here. Our system would just follow the priority we set here because for outgoing call, we don't need a caller ID. We just grab any available channel for that outgoing call. So basically means our system will just follow this default priority for outgoing calls every single time. So it doesn't make sense. I mean, for example, the first one is the SIP trunk. You know the concurrent call on SIP trunks is, concurrent calls on SIP trunk are multiple. I don't even know. All right, it depends on your system, right? So it basically means every single time people, when they try to make an outgoing call, they're going to go through the first channel. They're going to just go through the first channel unless the first channel is occupied. It's not available, right? Otherwise, it will not going to switch to the second channel. So this is not reasonable. What we prefer here is we want to make full use of our resources. We would like to have a kind of like an automatic switch between each other. That's what we prefer. So here we enable round robin with memory hunt. It basically means when you make a first call going out through the first channel, let's say. And then when you try to make another call, let's say another extension user make another call to his customers. Well, there you go. You're going to switch, our system going to switch it to the second channel for that outgoing call. So this is about the round robin with memory hunt. All right. Next step, select your extensions. Of course, you can select them all or you can select some of them. You can select some extension group or you can select some specific extensions, whatever you prefer. This is totally flexible. All right. And the last one would be time condition. For sure, you can choose to enable the time condition or not. I guess mostly we're going to use always because it's just for outgoing calls, I guess. Mostly, we can just keep it this way. All right. Okay, now let's talk about the dial pattern. The dial pattern we got here is kind of like the rule for our system to make an outgoing call. It basically just tells the system exactly how do we make an outgoing call. How do we dial numbers on our phone for that outgoing call. All right. So here we have pattern, we have strip, and we have prepend. Let's talk about them one by one. So every single time we try to create a new outbound route, you will have a default rule here. The default rule we have here is just the X with the point in the pattern. What does it mean? Well, I'm pretty sure you guys do remember it. Letter X means any number from 0 to 9, anything will be okay. All right. And a point actually means, give it a check here, a point or a dot, it actually matches one or more numbers. So basically it means if I put a dot behind letter X, the rule is quite simple. The rule just tells us the number you're going to dial at least it's 2 digits, all right? The number you're going to dial at least is 2 digits, all right? You cannot just dial a number with 1 digit. It doesn't work, right? So let's think about it. If I put a letter X and a dot here, it matches anything. Any number works by this rule, right? Any number, anything I dialed there, it works under this rule, right? But that's not so reasonable. That's not so, advanced. Because sometimes we would prefer to make our system be a little bit more intelligent. Because, think about it. If you want to call a customer and his number start with, let's see, this customer's number is start with number 4. Let's say, just an example, all right? And on your system, what if you have some extension users, their extension number also start with number 4? Well, Probably. I'm not so sure. All right. I'm just saying probably. Sometimes if you just try to call this customer like a 400 something like that, maybe you just made a mistake. You're gonna make that outgoing call to an internal call because you have something similar. Your internal user's extension number and this customer's number has something similar. They have something similar, which is the first digit or maybe first two or first three digits. All right. So now we just prefer to use this dial pattern to create something very specific, something which can tell the system if I dial that specific number, that would be kind of like a marker, kind of like an identification number. If I use that number as the first digit, please send this number to the outbound route, to outside instead of the internal, right? So let's say I can take any number. All right, any number will be fine. Let's say if I use number 9. All right. So it basically means every single time if I want to make an outgoing call, I will need to grab my phone, dial number 9, then I will need to dial the target number, which is the customer's number, right? Well, here's the deal. The problem is, this number 9 is your definition, your definition on your system, right? It only works on your system. It doesn't work on the service provider side. So if you just take this number directly, if your system, your PBX, send this number to the service provider directly, it doesn't make sense. It's an invalid number for the service provider. They can never identify this number, and they don't even know what is that, right? So we're supposed to delete the first digit before we send this number to the service provider. But how? Now, in the strip here, you can simply mention 1. Just drop 1 here. We're actually going to tell the system, please delete the first digit automatically before you send the number to the service provider. That number 9 is just kind of like the identification number for you, for the PBX only. And when you receive that signal, when you receive that order, all right, you're going to take the order, you're going to do something, right? So the next step you're going to do is please send number out. But the number you're going to send out, it's a number without this number 9. All right, so we just drop 1 in strip here. It tells the system, please delete the first digit before you send the number out to the service provider. All right. And the prepend we got here is quite simple. Whatever you put in the prepend is going to work as the prefix, all right, of your number. For the number you're going to dial. Let's see, I'm going to create an outbound route for, let's see, domestic. All right. So domestic is quite easy. It basically means whatever you're going to dial there, it doesn't matter which number you're going to dial there, and our system will just always keep your dialing in domestic. All right, that's it. So how do we do that? Pretty simple. I can simply just add 0086, our country code, right? So I can simply just add our country code here. And I'm sorry, you can never ever go anywhere else except China. All right, except for China. Because I just set a specific rule here. 0086. So whatever you're trying to dial, even you're dial some number which is from United States, Canada, anyway, it doesn't work because our phone system just automatically add 0086 in front of the number you're gonna dial. So when the system send this order, it's kind of like an order to the service provider side. Well, for service provider side, they can identify this number by 0086 first. So they take 0086, and then they just recognize the number you're gonna dial. Well, they just, the service provider will say this is kind of like a number in China only, domestic call. But anyway, this is just an example. You can put whatever you want to put here. All right. And then click on save and apply. Don't forget it. Very important. If you never click on apply, all of your modifications won't work. Okay. So this is the way how we create an outbound route on our P-Series system. Let's keep going. The next thing I will talk about here will be, I guess the last one I will talk about in today's session will be emergency number. Give it a check here. Click on add. All right, here we go. So what is an emergency number? Well, just like I said before, according to our configuration, when you try to make an outgoing call, we're supposed to dial number 9 first, right? But what if we're gonna make an emergency call What if something bad happened in the office? We will need help from the public security center, or we want to call ambulance. Anyway, something like that. So according to our configuration, obviously we're supposed to dial number 9 plus the emergency number. It doesn't make sense. It really doesn't make sense, guys, because sometimes, who knows, something bad happened, and some people, they just want to make an emergency call, but how can they figure out, do I need to dial number 9 first or number 8 first? For example, like if this is a PBX deployed in the hotel, you can't make sure everybody knows your rule. I mean, those guests, I'm not so sure, right? If there's something bad happen, they can't even figure out how to use the phone system for emergency call. It doesn't make sense. So in the emergency number feature here, it's kind of like we're just going to create some specific rules for our system. For some bad situation, if we need emergency call, if we need something urgent, we need help, we can just call emergency number directly. All right. So create a new emergency number rule here. We got a number here. You can, I'm sorry, we got a name here. You can probably call this as an emergency, whatever. Let's just call emergency. All right. Then we have emergency number. So you can put the emergency number here, like a 911. All right. So you can just put the 911 over here. Then we have Trunk's emergency outbound caller ID. So here we have emergency outbound caller ID priority. Two options. Okay, you have Trunk's emergency outbound caller ID and extension's emergency outbound caller ID. The difference is if you select Trunk's emergency outbound caller ID, it basically means if there's something bad happened, you make that specific emergency call, 911. The public security center, they will receive your call and they will get the caller ID from your side. And this caller ID, it's your Trunk's emergency outbound caller ID. And I guess I will talk about another thing, which is quite unique here. Not unique, quite special here. We just got an enhanced 911 service, all right? This is very important. I guess this service is available in every single country, all over the world. It actually is very interesting. You know, sometimes if you made an emergency call to the public security center, honestly, sometimes maybe situations are very bad, you know, very urgent. Who knows? So sometimes maybe we cannot just tell the public security center exactly where's my location for now. It's very hard for public security center to take action because they can't even locate you. Now, this emergency, the enhanced 911 service, which I mentioned before, it's actually like an additional service provided by the service provider. All right. They will actually just provide you a specific channel for that emergency call, and they will also ask you to register your specific location, your office location, and everything, information with that specific channel. So it basically means when you make that emergency call to the public security center, they will get your caller ID, and simultaneously they will get your registered information, like your office location. So they will be able to figure out where are you. So if we select Trunk's emergency outbound caller ID, it works for most of our business users. Public security center can just locate your office directly because it's just an office, nothing special. But what if we're talking about a project for a hotel? For hotel users, things are going to be completely different. I mean, if we use Trunk's emergency outbound caller ID, well, I guess public security centers, they will be able to locate your location, which is a hotel. But what now? What next? There are so many rooms. There are hundreds of rooms. How can I figure out which room, which customer, which guest make that specific call? It's very hard for me to do that. So for that circumstance, I guess we can probably use extension's emergency outbound caller ID. For every single extension, we can just make this very particular, kind of like registration. So for public security center, the message they're going to get from this call, the information they're going to get from this call is your caller ID and your extension number. Everything's over there, so they can just locate you directly. All right. And then just click on add. Here to add your rule here. You can select the specific channel for this emergency call. Any channel, all right? Just pick one. And then here you can put the emergency outbound caller ID number over here. That's it. So that will be the caller ID. We're going to display it to the public security center to show them this particular caller ID. All right. Okay. All right, guys. So I guess that was all we have for this session, for the session 2. And hopefully everything's clear for you guys. And once again, if you guys want to know more details about our Yeastar P-Series or some other Yeastar solutions, don't forget to visit our website, www.yeastar.com. By the way, don't forget to subscribe our YouTube channel, all right? Lots of videos are available. Lots of tutorials, videos are available on our YouTube channel. So, just subscribe our YouTube channel. And I will see you guys in the next session.